Look at this. It's worthless. $10 from a vendor in the street. But I take it, I bury it in the sand for 1,000 years, it becomes priceless. Like the Ark. Men will kill for it. Men like you and me.
Last episode, we had the opportunity to look at new Hollywood auteur cinema and the clash between auteur and blockbuster films. On Tuesday, we discussed Billy Freakin' Sorcerer and the Apocalypse Now-like descent into madness that went into making that movie in the Dominican Republic. We also discussed that Freakin's self-proclaimed masterpiece was absolutely crushed under the weight of Star Wars, which opened that same weekend. This was seen in retrospect as the seminal moment that the blockbuster film finally overtook the more personal, auteur style of artistic filmmaking. We should pause here and be clear though. Although the auteur versus blockbuster clash definitely happened multiple times throughout the late 70s, these were often directors that had close ties and worked in both styles.
You aren't just known for writing and directing these great films. There's also a famous character in popular fiction that is based off of you.
Yeah, that's Han Solo. Because George felt that I just took crazy, reckless chances and would jump off the mountain without knowing what was down there to land on, and that I would end up with no money. So he created, you can look it up, say Francis Coppola Han Solo, and you'll...
George Lucas, in fact, had the initial idea for Apocalypse Now, which he gave to Francis Ford Coppola, his American Zoetrope co-founder, after doing 4 years of work on it. It was Lucas, not Coppola, who had hired John Milius to write the screenplay, planned to use the Philippines, and even planned to direct it.
Your mission is to proceed up the Nung River in a Navy patrol boat. Pick up Colonel Kurtz's path at New Mung Ba. Follow it, learn what you can along the way. When you find the colonel, infiltrate his team by whatever means available, and terminate the colonel's command.
In the end, Star Wars ended up being George Lucas's next directorial project, and Coppola headed to the Philippines to go insane in the jungle. George Lucas was brainstorming Apocalypse Now alongside two other ideas. One ended up materializing into Star Wars, and the other became Raiders of the Lost Ark. Once Star Wars consumed all of George Lucas's time, he handed off the idea about an archaeologist who tracks down a mythical occultish object that turns out to be a MacGuffin to Steven Spielberg. Spielberg's breakthrough, after a rocky start to his directorial ambitions, had come with the 1975 big-budget shark attack movie Jaws, which is considered one of the first high-concept summer blockbusters. High-concept films are made for as wide an audience as possible, big-budget, and generally based around an easy-to-understand question or premise that makes it easy to sell to audiences. Jaws became the best-performing movie of all time up to that point, bringing in $260 million. 2 years later, Jaws' box office record would be blown out of the water, so to speak, by Star Wars, which unexpectedly brought in $461 million at the box office. Spielberg publicly congratulated George Lucas with an ad in Variety to honor his friend. And George Lucas came to him with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones was originally envisioned by Spielberg as Tom Selleck, who was cast but had a contractual obligation with CBS to film a pilot that he couldn't get out of.
Look, I did what I did. I don't expect you to be happy about it. But maybe it can do us both some good.
That pilot was Magnum P.I. After panicking for a bit, Spielberg watched Empire Strikes Back, which was out by this point in 1980, and asked Lucas if he could cast Harrison Ford.
I love you.
I know.
Both avid fans of Golden Age Hollywood cinema, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg envisioned Raiders of the Lost Ark as an homage to 1930s and 1940s serialized pictures.
Did I upset your plans? You've come to Nottingham once too often. When this is over, my friend, there'll be no need for me to come again.
Swashbuckling pictures, adventure pictures, westerns. The serialized picture was generally cheaply and quickly made, full of action, and often in chapters that would be shown week to week until they were finished. George Lucas was inspired to make both Star Wars and Indiana Jones based on a big-budget, high-concept reimagining of these serials. Two such serials, Zorro Rides Again and Spy Smasher, have been listed as inspirations for Indiana Jones by Lucas. Two other films to mention. Indiana Jones' iconic look with the bullwhip, hat, 45 and leather jacket was inspired by Charlton Heston's look in The Secret of the Incas.
Most men don't enjoy taking money from women.
That's the best kind.
As well as a similar look that Alan Ladd had in the adventure film China in 1943 as a character named David Jones who would provide Indiana Jones with a name as well.
You know, my father was a young man. He was very much like you. Same ideas, talked the same way.
Thanks.
He was arrogant, opinionated, and completely wrapped up in himself.
Oh, I thought you said he was a great guy.
Oh, he was afterward,
After what?
after he met Chiang Kai-shek. Then he spent the rest of his life working with him. I, in my own small way, am trying to do the same thing.
The costume designer for Raiders of the Lost Ark has said that Secret of the Incas is an almost shot-for-shot inspiration for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that the crew would often watch it. Charlton Heston plays a tourist guide who hunts down the Incan sunburst treasure in Peru. One other film that deserves a shout out is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. This is a film by John Huston, which stars Humphrey Bogart as an American who gets greedy and obsessed with finding a treasure.
Get away from my burrow.
We can sell those burros for just as good as prices you can.
Get away from my burrow, I tell you.
You can frighten even a sick louse with that. You can only shoot one of us.
The Treasure of the Sierra Madre was also the inspiration for the characters in Sorcerer, so I guess it goes full circle. Indiana Jones takes place in the 1930s, with World War II about to start up and the Nazis in full swing.
What about your boss, Der Fuhrer? I thought he was waiting to take possession.
Indiana Jones is an archaeologist whose life revolves around digging up and getting ancient relics and treasures, but his own history is about to catch up with him.
I need one of the pieces your father collected.
I learned to hate you in the last 10 years.
The mythical Holy Grail of the Indiana Jones world is the Ark of the Covenant, which was the chest of the Ten Commandments.
What do you mean, Ten Commandments? You're talking about the Ten Commandments?
Yes, the actual 10 Commandments.
Yes, the Ten Commandments, those ones, were stored in. Indiana Jones must stop the Nazis from getting the Ark of the Covenant, which has the power of God inside it.
Jones? Jones!